Why is it that some women walk into a room and suddenly no one else exists? It's not just beauty. It's not about wearing red lipstick or knowing the right things to say. It's something deeper, something you can't fake. And maybe you've felt the opposite. Maybe you've looked around and wondered, what do they have that I don't? Why do I feel invisible, like I'm always trying too hard and still not enough? You're not alone. And you're not missing anything. There's a powerful truth buried underneath all the noise. Carl Jung called it the feminine archetype, a quiet force within you, not built for chasing or pleasing, but for magnetizing. This isn't about changing who you are. It's about remembering who you've always been. If you've ever felt like you were fading into the background, this might just be your wake-up call. Because when you embody this energy, he won't be able to think of anyone else. You smiled when you didn't feel like it. You stayed quiet to avoid conflict. You asked for less, needed less, just to seem easier to love. And when it still didn't work, when he pulled away anyway, you blamed yourself. You've been taught that being enough means being agreeable, prettier, softer, less opinionated, less you. Somewhere along the way, the world convinced you that your power only exists if someone else chooses you, so you tried harder, you shrank smaller, you played it safe. And still, it wasn't enough. Maybe you know the feeling. You sent the text, you waited, you reread every word. Should I have said that? Was it too much? Did I seem too eager? And then silence. The weight of not being answered hangs heavier than rejection itself. But this story, this cycle is not yours to carry. This is not your flaw. This is your conditioning. Carl Jung spoke of the persona, the mask we wear to fit into the world. It's the version of ourselves we believe others will approve of, the curated image, the rehearsed responses, the filtered emotions. And most women have been taught to perfect that mask. You learn to be palatable, predictable, polite. But here's the hard truth. The mask doesn't make you magnetic. It makes you invisible. Think about it. How often have you held back your truth to keep the peace? How many times have you said, "It's fine," when it wasn't? You were raised to believe that being likable would lead to being loved. But the deeper reality, love doesn't grow from performance. It grows from presence. So what if everything you've been taught about being enough is a lie? What if your power isn't in being nice? What if it's in being real? This isn't about being rude or cold. It's about reclaiming the parts of you that you've hidden to earn someone else's affection. The fire, the intuition, the messy, beautiful, full-spectrum version of you that exists beyond approval. The truth is, the energy that draws someone in, truly draws them in, isn't loud. It doesn't beg. It doesn't chase. It's not perfectly scripted or perfectly timed. It's ancient. It's the knowing in your silence, the calm in your no, the way you walk away not to punish, but because your soul refuses to beg. That kind of energy can't be faked. It's not a tactic. It's not a tip. It's a remembering. You don't have to become someone else to be unforgettable. You just have to stop trying so hard to be someone you're not. So, take a breath, let go of the mask, and ask yourself this: when did I stop trusting that I was already enough? Because underneath everything you've been told to be is the truth of who you are. And once you reconnect with that, he won't be able to think of anyone else. You've been told that if you want to be desired, you have to look a certain way, act a certain way, speak only when it's welcome. But Carl Jung saw something deeper. He believed there are patterns, timeless energies, living inside every one of us, what he called archetypes. And among them, the feminine archetypes hold a quiet, sacred power. They are not personalities you perform. They are energies you embody. There's the sage, the wise woman who sees past illusion. The mother, the nurturer who protects. The huntress, the fierce, independent spirit. The mystic, the one who knows without proof. And then, there's the lover. Not the lover you've been warned about. Not someone desperate for attention or consumed by romance. The true lover archetype is magnetic, not because she's needy, but because she's alive. She doesn't apologize for her depth. She doesn't dull her light. Her presence isn't loud, but it's unforgettable. You know her. Maybe you've been her before the world told you to tone it down. She walks into a space and doesn't compete. She simply enters, and something shifts. Her presence whispers, "I belong here." And it's not just about confidence, it's something softer, richer. The way she laughs with her whole body, the way she holds eye contact, not as a test, but as an offering. Then there's the mystic. She doesn't seek attention, yet people feel drawn to her. She trusts what she feels, even when it doesn't make sense on paper. She doesn't ask for proof she knows. The mystic and the lover have something in common. They both live from the inside out. They don't perform, they radiate. This is the feminine energy most of us were never taught to value. It's intuitive, emotional, sensual, deep. It's the power of presence over performance. And here's the truth. The reason he can't stop thinking about her, it's not looks, it's not charm, it's the way she sees herself. There's a kind of woman who doesn't need to convince you. She doesn't need validation because she's already chosen herself. That's what stays in his mind. That's what lingers long after she's gone. She's not chasing, she's dancing with life, with her truth. And when she walks away, it feels like the room loses color. Maybe you felt glimpses of that in yourself. The moment you laughed without checking if anyone approved. The night you walked home feeling more full from your own energy than from anyone's attention. That's her. She's not gone. She's just been buried beneath expectations, roles, and noise. So ask yourself, which part of you have you silenced to be acceptable? Your boldness, your softness, your desire to feel fully? We are taught to shrink ourselves in order to be chosen. But what if being chosen begins with expanding into your own essence? The lover archetype doesn't need to be nice. She needs to be true. The mystic doesn't need proof. She needs to trust her own rhythm. These parts of you don't need to be earned. They just need to be remembered. You don't have to fake anything to become magnetic. You already are. It's just that the world taught you to forget. And now maybe for the first time in a long time, you're ready to remember. She wasn't the loudest woman in the room. She didn't wear the flashiest dress or tell the best story. But when she walked by, heads turned, conversations paused. And not because she was trying, because she wasn't. There's something rare about that kind of presence. Something you can't put into words, but you feel it when it's there. Maybe you've seen her. Maybe you've been her, even if only for a fleeting moment. That feeling when you were completely in your body, not performing, not seeking, just present, just you. And suddenly, people noticed not because you demanded their attention, but because you were no longer trying to escape yourself. Carl Jung had a word for this journey back to your truth. Individuation. It's not about becoming better. It's about becoming whole. Individuation is the process of peeling away everything that was never really you, the roles, the rules, the masks, so you can return to who you were before the world told you who to be. It's not easy, but it's powerful. Because when you stop striving to be someone else, you become someone unforgettable. And that's what real magnetism is. It's not about effort, it's about alignment. Not the alignment someone else approves of, but the one your soul recognizes. So let's talk about her. She's not the prettiest in the room, not by traditional standards. She doesn't beg for attention. In fact, she barely seems aware she's being watched. But there's something in the way she carries herself. The way she breathes. She doesn't rush to fill the silence. She doesn't over-explain. She knows who she is. That's the part that catches people off guard. The fact that she's not looking around for approval. She's not shrinking, not performing. She's just fully there. That presence, calm, unbothered, rooted, becomes magnetic. There's a moment. He says something to get a reaction. A subtle test. Will she chase? Will she try harder? Will she try to prove she's worth it? She doesn't bite. She just smiles. Not because she's dismissing him, but because she no longer needs to convince anyone of anything. And that's the moment. That's when he feels it. The shift, the power, the loss of control, because she's no longer under the spell of trying. Have you ever felt more powerful the moment you stopped trying? That's not a coincidence. That's your soul remembering itself. The world teaches women to work for attention, to chase it, dress for it, speak for it, sacrifice for it. But magnetism, true magnetism, lives in the absence of need. It's in the woman who can hold space with silence, who can say no without guilt, who can leave without anger, just clarity. Because she's not trying to be chosen. She's already chosen herself. There's a kind of beauty that doesn't scream. It hums. It moves through the room like smoke, quiet but impossible to ignore. That's the power of a woman who is no longer performing. She knows her worth without needing a witness. She's not afraid to walk away, not because she's cold, but because she refuses to shrink for love. That's the energy he remembers, long after the moment passes. And here's the secret. You don't have to become her. You already are her. She's underneath the layers, the noise, the pressure. She's the version of you that knows when to speak and when to be still, when to reach out and when to pull back. Not based on fear, but on trust. Trust in your timing. Trust in your body. Trust in your inner knowing. You don't need louder words. You need deeper stillness. You don't need a new look. You need your own reflection, seen with honest, loving eyes. And once you return to that place within yourself, once you stop trying to earn what you already are, he won't be able to look away. Not because you demanded it, but because your presence spoke louder than anything you could have said. She thought holding on meant love. That if she just did more, gave more, waited longer, he would finally choose her. She shaped herself to fit what he wanted, or what she thought he wanted. She read between the lines of his short replies, planned her words carefully, convinced herself that her patience was proof of her worth. But what she didn't realize was this: the tighter she held on, the more she slipped away from herself. This isn't just her story. Maybe, in pieces, it's yours too. There's a line in modern psychology that speaks directly to this: attachment versus embodiment. Attachment says, I need you to choose me so I can feel safe. Embodiment says, I choose me first, so I no longer need to chase safety in someone else. She didn't know it yet, but her fear of losing him wasn't really about him. It was about losing her own sense of identity, her value, her enoughness. So she clung to the text that never came, to the almost relationship that never became something real, to the hope that maybe, just maybe, he'd wake up one day and finally see her. And then something shifted. Not all at once, not in a dramatic scene. It happened quietly. One morning, she woke up and didn't feel like checking her phone. She sat with her coffee in silence and realized she hadn't thought about him for hours. It was as if her body, tired of the emotional tug-of-war, had finally whispered, enough. That was the beginning of her letting go. She didn't let go because she stopped caring. She let go because she started caring differently. She stopped measuring her worth by his attention. She stopped asking, what did I do wrong? And started asking, what do I actually want? And as she returned to herself, her passions, her breath, her body, something wild happened. He came back. Of course he did. That's how these stories often go. But now, everything was different. She wasn't waiting with open arms. She wasn't hoping he would say the right thing. She didn't need his love to feel complete. She had already begun the slow, steady work of falling in love with her own life. And he felt it. The woman he once took for granted was now the one he couldn't reach. Because the energy had changed. She no longer chased. She no longer explained. She no longer begged. She simply bloomed. And here's the truth behind that. It's not the flower that begs the bee. It simply blooms. There's a quiet power in letting go. Not in anger, not in resentment, but in clarity. Letting go isn't giving up. It's choosing peace over performance, truth over tension, self-respect over survival mode. So take a breath and ask yourself, what are you holding on to that's actually holding you back? Maybe it's not even about him. Maybe it's about who you thought you had to be to earn love. Maybe it's time to stop gripping and start receiving. Because when you embody your worth, you don't chase love. You attract it. Not through manipulation, not through effort, through truth, through being, through your blooming. She didn't win him back. That was never the goal. She won herself back. And that changed everything. You don't need to act feminine. You don't need to follow a script, smile more, speak less, or float through life pretending everything is fine. That's not what makes you magnetic. What makes you magnetic is presence, not performance, not perfection, presence. That means being where you are, with all of yourself, not stuck in overthinking, not chasing how you should feel, but asking something far more honest. What feels true right now? There's power in that question. It calls you back to your body, to the moment, to what's real. Because the truth is, you're not broken. You've just been taught to disconnect from your instincts, your emotions, your voice. But it's time to come back home to yourself. That's what embodiment means. It's not about acting confident. It's about becoming deeply rooted in who you are, even when that version of you doesn't fit the mold. It's about knowing what you value, trusting your no as much as your yes, letting your intuition speak before your fear gets the mic. Most of us were taught to seek validation. We became experts in reading the room, adjusting ourselves, editing our words before they even left our mouths. But the real shift happens when you stop shaping yourself to be chosen and start choosing yourself. That's how you build real self-worth, not the kind that spikes when someone texts you back, but the kind that stays steady no matter who's watching. Let me walk you through it. The first shift is in presence. Start paying attention to your energy when you walk into a space. Are you scanning for reactions? Or are you grounded in your body? You don't have to speak louder to be noticed. You just have to be here. When you show up without apology, people feel it even if they can't explain why. Next, build a relationship with your intuition. This isn't about logic. It's about learning to listen. When something feels off, trust that. When something lights you up, lean into it. You've spent years doubting yourself. What would happen if you spent 1 week listening instead? And finally, self-respect. Not the kind built on boundaries barked like ultimatums. I'm talking about the quiet, internal kind. The kind that says, I don't need to prove myself to be enough. I already am. That energy changes the room. That energy rewrites your story. Here's the thing. You don't need anyone's permission to be this woman. You don't need to wait for him to notice, or for the timing to be perfect, or for your life to be fully in order. You just need to begin. Start where you are. Right now. Take one breath that's just for you. Speak one truth that's been sitting in your chest. Say no to something that drains you. Say yes to something that scares you in a good way. This isn't a makeover. It's a return to your softness, to your fire, to your quiet knowing. The world doesn't need more women trying to fit in. The world needs more women who are embodied. Fully here, fully themselves, unapologetic in their presence, but deeply rooted in love. You don't have to fake it to be magnetic. You just have to come home to who you are. And that woman, the one who knows what she feels, what she needs, and what she'll no longer settle for, is unforgettable. The woman who embodies her truth doesn't need to chase. She becomes unforgettable, not because she's trying, but because she's fully herself. You've walked through doubt, through the weight of trying to be enough. You've seen the mask for what it is, and you've started to peel it off. You've remembered the feminine archetypes that live inside you. You felt the quiet shift when you stopped clinging and started listening. You've seen that magnetism doesn't come from proving, performing, or pleasing. It comes from presence, from self-trust, from choosing yourself again and again. This isn't about becoming someone new. It's about reclaiming who you've always been, before the world told you to shrink. Your power was never gone. It was just buried beneath layers of expectation, fear, and noise. But now, you've started the most sacred work there is, coming home to yourself. And if this spoke to something deep in you, if even one moment made you pause, breathe differently, see yourself a little more clearly, share it. Someone out there is still in the fog, still shrinking, still waiting to be told she's enough. She doesn't need a fix. She needs a reminder, just like you did.